Hey guys, this is Roth from the shop. Today I'm actually out of the shop and into the bathroom taking not that, but taking a small half bath and giving it a new look with a brand new vanity. So stay tuned. Okay guys, to kick things off, I'm going to do a couple small things and get those out of the way first. Now the bathroom actually is my father-in-law's, and one of his complaints was that the toilet paper holder worked loose and came out of the wall. One bracket was mounted into the studs, but the other one was mounted into the drywall, and the anchors worked loose and eventually it fell out. So to make it more secure, what we decided to do was mount the brackets to a wood backboard. And then one side of that backboard will be mounted to studs, and the other side will be held in by anchors through the drywall. So the wood backboard, I actually cut out a 3/4 inch poplar, and then I just painted it white. And then to make things match, I did the same thing with the hand towel holder. Now hanging these is pretty straightforward, and the way I like to do it is to place them on the wall where I want it, put the level on top, and then once we get it level, I'll use an 1/8 inch drill bit to drill a pilot hole through the wall, and that also marks the location of the holes so I know right where to put the anchors. Now the anchors I like to use are metal anchors with a pretty aggressive spiral, and they're made for both hollow core doors and drywall. I've used these for a long time and they've always held really well. Now with the anchors in place in the drywall, I can go ahead and fasten them in. With the anchors in place, I like to drive the screws through the backboard so that they stick out through the back about 1/4 inch. This helps me to line everything up pretty easily, and then I can fasten it down for good. And guys, over on the other side of the wall, I'm going to use the same process for the toilet paper holder, where I put it in place, mark the holes, put in the anchors, and then drive home the screws. Okay, now with that little stuff done and out of the way, I can focus on the vanity. And the first thing I'm going to do is bring the vanity into the bathroom and place it on the wall where it's going to be. Then I'm going to mark the baseboard trim. Now me personally, I'm not a big fan of putting a vanity in front of baseboard. Number one, it leaves a pretty big gap behind the vanity. And number two, because of that gap, it doesn't leave much surface to sit the backsplash on. So after I mark the baseboard, I'm going to use the multi-tool and a plunge cut blade and cut it out. Now the multi-tool isn't something that I use a lot, but it is one of those things that really comes in handy when I do need it. And right here's a good example. I mean, you can see it makes nice straight square cuts that really fit the profile of the vanity. And now I can remove that middle section of the baseboard. When it comes to the faucet, I'm going to assemble as much as I can while I have access to the back of the vanity. And I'm going to start with the hot water handle, which is located on the left side. I'm going to put the washer and nut underneath and then lock it down for good by tightening the adjustment screws. I'm then going to repeat the same process on the cold water handle. With the two handles out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and insert the spigot through the center hole, slide the fastening plate underneath, hand tighten the nut, and then tighten it down for good with a supplied wrench. One thing nice about some of these new faucets is how easy it is to hook up the water lines. It's basically like a quick connect system where all you do is snap the fittings in place. And now comes probably the hardest part of this whole project, getting the vanity back in the bathroom. It is tight. With the vanity back in the bathroom, I'm going to go ahead and cut a slot in the bottom for the P-trap. Now after I mark it, I'd typically pull the vanity out and cut it with the jigsaw, but because everything in here is so tight, I'm going to let the vanity in place and use the multi-tool. To finish up my water connections, I'm going to use some Teflon tape around all the threads on the supply lines. Now, being that these are brand new lines, you probably wouldn't have to do this. But there's been a couple cases where I didn't, had leaks, and then had to take the lines back off and use the tape. So to avoid all that, I'm just going to use the tape right from the start. Guys, because it's so tight underneath the vanity, I'm going to assemble this pop-up drain outside the bathroom just to show you how they typically work. When installing the rim of the drain, the manufacturer recommends sealing it with silicone caulking. So after applying a bead of silicone to the bottom, we'll press the rim down. Next, I'll thread the drain pipe up through the bottom and lock it down by tightening the nut. Next, I'll put the lifting rod down through the top and connect the pivot rod to the clevis strap. At this time, I gotta give a shout out to my oldest son, Brody. He likes to come along and help me sometimes, and when he's not helping, he loves art and he loves to draw. When it comes to P-traps, they consist of three main parts. There's a pipe coming down from the drain, that goes into the P-shaped trap itself, and then that goes into a pipe which carries the water away and out through the wall. Now, usually these traps come with plastic washers, and if there's one thing I personally like to do, it's to get rid of these washers and use rubber washers. In my opinion, they seal a lot better, I never have issues with leaks, and if anyone's interested, I'll let a link in the description box. When assembling the P-trap, I don't want to tighten everything down snug right off the bat. I want to let everything a little bit loose so I can make necessary adjustments. Now, after I assemble the pipe that goes into the wall, I'm going to slide the rest of the unit, which will be partially assembled, in place, make the necessary adjustments, and then tighten the nuts down for good. And now it's finally time to turn on the supply valve and see what happens. Okay, so we got running water. Now I'm going to go underneath and just double check all valves and all connections just to make absolutely sure that there's no leaks. Guys, sometimes these projects can require us to do custom things that we wouldn't typically do. And this vanity is a good example. If you look here, there's actually a drawer underneath that can't slide the whole way back because it hits the P-trap. So what I did was marked it and then cut out a slot with a jigsaw so that it can move freely. The final part of this vanity installation is going to be to install the backsplash. And I'm going to do that by applying a bead of silicone caulking all the way around the perimeter and on the bottom. Then I'll sit and press the backsplash in place. Okay, now I'm going to use silicone caulking again to seal the joint between the backsplash and the countertop. And then I'm going to use latex caulking to seal the backsplash and the wall. Now the reason I'm using latex caulking here is because I can paint over it for touch-ups. One thing I like to do is press the caulking down in the joint just to give it a better seal. and then I'll wipe away any excess and touch up the paint. The last upgrade I'm going to do to this bathroom is to install an oval vanity mirror. Now this mirror hangs by hooks on the back, so what I'm going to do is lightly mark the hooks on the side of the mirror. That way when I hold it in place, I'll know exactly where to mark the wall. Now I don't show it all here, but after finding the center of the wall, I leveled this yardstick, then measured out from the center the correct distance for the hooks. Then I drilled an 1/8 inch pilot hole and screwed in the anchors. And now with screws in place, this mirror is ready to hang. Now I usually like to save all the touch-up paint work till the end, just because when you're hanging things or moving things around, it can be easy to bump the walls. So the last thing I'm going to do here is touch up the paint where I caulked around the backsplash. And with that, this project is complete. Now overall, everything went really well. The upgrades were pretty easy and could definitely be done in a weekend. And it's just nice to see that a few simple changes can go a long way in enhancing the look of a room. Guys, thanks for tuning in on location today for our little half bath upgrade. Now if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I definitely appreciate it. And if you like other home improvement related things, check out some of the other content on my channel. Maybe even consider subscribing. Guys, thanks again, and I'll see you later back at the shop.